All right, good morning. Welcome, everyone. We'll be letting people in as they show up, but we're going to get started because there's a lot of information we definitely will need to cover. My name is Michael Paul. I'm one of the 6 counselors here at Wayne Valley, as well as Mrs. Feinberg. All right, so presentation today will cover the application types as well as filling out the Common App, an overview of Naviance as it relates to the platform that we utilize to submit all the materials, as well as the other helpful tools that are available on the platform. A college application checklist, which we provide for students so that they sort of know how to ensure that they are getting everything done in a timely manner. The process by which they request letters of recommendation, the SRAR, SAT and ACT scores, standardized tests in general, as well as career and military options. If there are questions, please feel free to drop them in the chat. If we are going to cover them, we may not answer them right away because we are going to be touching on what some of the questions may be asking. So if your question is not answered right away, please just be patient. We're definitely going to cover the information. So the purposes of applying, there are essentially 3 types of applications that we recommend that students look to apply. Between 5 and 8 schools approximately. We have students apply to many more than that. We have students apply to fewer than that. It's definitely based on the decision of obviously cost. There are application fees for many applications. Some schools will offer to cover the cost if students attend a rep visit here at Wayne Valley. If they go on a visit to the university, they also may waive that fee. So sometimes the numbers are different, but this is our recommendation.
Yep. I'll get it to you in a little bit.
Asked to cover or do the back end work to ensure that materials are received and such. So the 3 types are listed below. A safety school, obviously, it's a school that a student is confident that they are going to be accepted into. Target school identifies a school as one in which the student is very confident that they are going to get an acceptance, and it is their ideal place academically, socially, the environment that they want to be in. And then a reach school, obviously, is a school that may be slightly out of their reach. It's not unusual for students to get into their reach school, but not into their target school, to get into their reach school, but not into their target school. There are various application types listed here. Early action is non-binding, and it is essentially an opportunity for students to get an answer or get a response about their acceptance earlier for their planning purposes. It also helps the colleges and universities for their planning. If a student does not gain an acceptance in the early action timeline, more often than not, they'll get a deferment to the regular decision timeline, and it's because the university wants to basically see how they stack up to the rest of the applicant pool. There's also early decision, which is a binding agreement. And basically, if a student puts in an early decision application, they can only put in 1 at a time. And it is a contractual application. So students will be asked to sign off. Will be asked to sign off that they understand the binding agreement. Rolling applications, they are reviewed in real time, and students usually can hear in approximately a month. These tend to be some of the smaller schools, and they'll review as they come in and make their decisions. A deferment, like I said, is either from an early action application, or if they're waiting to see, if there's a number of students that do not accept their initial acceptance by that typical May 1st deadline, which has tend to fluctuate because of the financial aid application opening late. So there's also a wait list. So if a student isn't accepted or deferred, they can be waitlisted.
Okay, so sorry, you're going to be hearing me over Mr. Paul's microphone. So if you see that I'm muted, you'll be able to hear me through there. But college application checklist. So this is just some of the information that we go over with students on things that they should be looking to do as they're going through this process. So first, we want students to add the schools that they're applying to Naviance under colleges I'm applying to. We showed them in the presentation yesterday, the same presentation that you're getting on how to actually go about doing that. But basically when they log into Naviance, there's a colleges tab at the top. If they go to that, there's something to click on that says colleges I'm applying to, and they're able to just add their schools there. This is going to allow us as the counselors to see where they're applying, and then also it will allow them to see a little bit more information. So that would include the deadlines that the schools are looking for. It also shows us how many letters of recommendation the schools are looking for us to send. So that's an important step in the process. Also asking for letters of recommendation. So a lot of students started that process last year in the spring. A lot were continuing to ask teachers in the fall now that we've gotten back. So we've been telling students that if they haven't started asking for letters yet, to just start asking now. We always ask students to talk to their teachers first to request their letters and then put in the request on Naviance. And we're going to get more in depth into that later on. Complete the Common App. So again, another topic that we're going to go more in depth on is the Common App, but that's the big piece that students are going to have to do. That is the most time consuming and often what students say is the most tedious part of the application process, but that's going to be the bulk of it as well. Connecting the Common App and Naviance accounts. So we show students how to do that if they're not certain, but there's a place on Naviance that says, do you want to connect to your Common App account? All the student has to do is then enter in their Common App email address, and it connects the two. It really streamlines the process so that we're able to send letters and transcripts directly to schools electronically, so that schools don't have to have that long processing time if we were to be mailing material still. Completing the FERPA waiver on the Common App. Again, another part that we're going to get more in depth on what that means later, but this is an important piece that would need to be done in order for us to submit any documents for the student. Completing the transcript verification form. So this is a link that we've sent out to all students. If they're not able to find it, we are totally able to send it again. But this form is going to ask students to look at a hard copy of their transcript that we're also providing them with, and to just say everything looks accurate on here. You're able to send this transcript out to schools. Of course, the transcript should already be accurate, but sometimes weird things happen with the system. So it's just so that the student can say, like, yes, this is what colleges should be receiving, basically. And then finally, submitting SAT or ACT scores if applicable. Some schools actually a lot of schools are becoming test optional or became test optional around COVID and have stayed test optional. So students now have the option if they would even want to submit their scores. So this is what Naviance looks like. Kind of touched upon it a bit in the last slide, but this is going to be the home page that students see when they log in. So a lot of students will use that colleges tab at the top, like we were talking about. So that's where students will find the option to put in letter of recommendation requests, to add in the schools that they're applying to look and see just more information about schools that they're interested in, but not quite sure if they're applying to yet. So that's an option that students use quite a bit. There are, of course, other tabs that they can go through, and we're going to kind of go through what those include as well. But just as a brief summary, they have self-assessments on here for students who are wanting to find out more about what career options might be a good fit. They have career resources, they have scholarship resources. So there really is a lot that students can do with Naviance. So again, the self-discovery tools, like we were mentioning, they have skills and personality assessments. They do have career and military exploration resources. The college resources, of course, like we were saying. The letters of recommendation. So what that process is, we've been over it with the students. We're going to continue to go over it, but that's where the letters of recommendations are managed pretty much when the students are applying. They have a resume builder. So students are able to create a resume basically on Naviance if they haven't already made one. So they're able to input their experiences and then work on building that format on Naviance, and then a scholarship search as well. So scholarships that we receive, scholarships that just are filtered through Naviance. So different resources for students there to see as well.
So these are scattergrams that are available when students are starting to add colleges to the tab of colleges they're planning on applying to, or I'm sorry, colleges they're thinking about. Every single college on the Naviance platform has its own page. Some of the information that is pretty valuable that we provide to our students at the end of every senior year, the students are requested to fill out a graduation survey. And part of that information is where they've been accepted, where they've not been accepted, and where they've maybe been waitlisted. This is a scattergram. All the information on the Naviance platform for the scattergrams is all internal statistics. It's all internal data. So as you can see, all the green are all self-reported acceptances from Wayne Valley students. Obviously, the red are denials, and the deferments are waitlist rather is little green circles. That's obviously more viewable, or it's more visible on when you're looking at the platform. I can't zoom in, this being the just the presentation, just so we can show you, so you can see what it looks like. Essentially, GPA, standardized test score. So for this example and this school, this is Penn State. Their ideal student is right here where these two cross sections meet. Okay, every single school provides, or are we providing data on all the schools that our students have applied to? It's just a good reference. The College Compare Me tool, once students have moved schools from the list that they are thinking about to the list that they are going to apply to, there is a clickable button within that list where it says Compare Me, and it will list what every school is looking for with regard to GPA, standardized test score, and such. So it sort of gives them some idea of possibly what an acceptance might look like. So in this example, the student, we have a demo account that we use just as reference. And in this demo account, Demo Feinberg, she does not hit those cutoffs for the schools that are on the list, okay, that as indicated by these little X's. It gives students a better perspective and helps them when they're moving from that dream phase of this is where I want to go to college to this is where it's possible for me to go to college with my academic record and all the things that come along with it. So it really starts to take that process out of the abstract and make it a more realistic approach to the process. So the Common App, obviously, it's a pretty significant part of this process. It is a third-party application platform. Currently, that number grows all the time. We have it listed right now as over 500 schools accept the Common App. There are more schools joining the Common App process over time. Rutgers just started accepting the Common App last year, and they had an explosion of applications. I think they got somewhere around 68,000 applications. So to understand that the Common App is a universal application, so they only have to fill it out once. If a school is a Common App school, we highly recommend that students fill it out apply through the Common App. With your Common App and Naviance accounts connected, all the materials get sent out digitally. Some schools may have a supplemental where they're requiring additional questions to be answered, additional essays possibly. But the beauty of it is that you're not filling out, if we're doing 5 to 8 applications, you're not filling out 5 to 8 individual applications. You're filling out the Common App once, adding the schools that you're going to apply to on your Common App list. And then if there are supplementals, obviously those are addressed. We definitely want students to be using their personal email when filling out the Common App, because once they graduate, literally the day after they graduate, they no longer have access to their school email. And that would interfere with their ability to interact with the platform because they've used an email account they no longer have access to. So using a personal email, if they don't have one or they don't have one that sounds appropriate or professional, we recommend making a new one. So there are individual statistics that are important for the class of 2025. The GPA is printed on the unofficial on their transcript, their individual rank is not. We report the rank by decile, excuse me, but students are entitled to report their individual rank if it's something they really want to talk about. If their rank obviously is really high, they can self-report, but we do not publish it. The class size is 309 for purposes of where their rank is. They're going to be asked these questions on the Common App. It's going to ask them specifically. We report the rank as weighted on a 4.0 scale. And the school code, which has not changed for a number of years, is 311573. They usually have to provide that code for standardized tests, but it helps to universalize the process in identifying Wayne Valley as their high school. Here's a decile rank chart, which obviously changes every year given the strength of the current class. So wherever a student's GPA falls within these percentiles, that would indicate what their rank is. So the Common App, the FERPA waiver, Family Education Rights to Privacy Act. So by law, students have the opportunity to read anything that's written about them. To give some context, we highly recommend that you waive your right. It potentially could stand out for a college to know that a student has viewed their letter of recommendation. And the idea being that if it never passes through the student's hands, it carries more weight, it carries more validity. This is my 10th year at Valley, and I've had a handful of students that have maintained their right. Most students waive it overwhelmingly, but again, it's their right.
So one of the pieces of the process that we kind of started to talk about a bit before is matching the Common App to Naviance accounts. So this is an important step in the process that allows us as the counselors to be able to send documents like the letters of recommendation and transcripts to schools electronically, and to just send them directly so that schools are able to receive them and see them right away. So students will, part of the process is completing the FERPA waiver that Mr. Paul was just talking about. That piece is done through the Common App, but then students, in order to connect the two accounts, will do so through Naviance. So students will log into their Naviance account. If they're not able to get into their Naviance account, sorry, we are able to reset the password for them for Naviance if they're not able to get into their account. So students will log into Naviance. They will go to the colleges I'm applying to section of the page. And then there's going to be a big red button. Like, it's pretty hard to miss if you know where to find it, but a big red button that says, do you want to match your accounts? Students will then just enter in their Common App email address there. And then the two accounts will be matched. So again, that will allow us to send all of their documents directly to their schools. And it'll also allow us to keep track of where they're applying and what their deadlines are. So we'll be able to go in and see, okay, this student has now added 2 more schools since the last time we looked. We now know that we have to send out those documents to those schools as well.
One important thing to note, if the school does not appear on their Naviance list, we have no idea the application exists because that's the only platform we have access to. When the student is linking their Common App to their Naviance accounts, they are managing their applications through the Common App. We are managing the supporting documentation through the Naviance platform. So if it's not on Naviance, we do not know about it. So what about if a school's not on Common App? So typically, if a school's not on Common App, students are going to apply through the school's website, and ensuring that it is still on the Naviance platform, because it's still going to be sent out digitally through an eDocs process, which is nothing the student needs to be concerned with, and it's part of our process.
So for letters of recommendation, so how many do students typically need? It varies by school. So some schools will not accept any letters if they're an exceptionally larger school. Some schools will only take 1. I've seen some schools take up to 10. So it's a huge range, but typically we recommend 2 to 3 letters, not counting the counselor's letter. So students will often ask teachers for the most part. I've had some students ask coaches. Students will sometimes ask a boss to write a letter, but definitely we would say around 2 teacher letters. 3 teacher letters is also good, but if a student has 2 letters from a teacher plus 1 from a coach, that's great as well. Your counselor will also, or the student's counselor will also write them a letter. But that's again not going to count towards that amount. So if a school accepts 2 letters, we're able to send those 2 teacher letters plus the counselor's recommendation as well. Again, students can ask teachers who they've known pretty well, teachers who they've taken more than once in class, or a teacher who teaches a subject that the student has had in a subject that the student maybe wants to study or pursue in college or as a career. So that would be a good option as well. Or a teacher that the student has also had for an extracurricular activity like band or a sport if they've had that teacher as a coach. So those would be some really good options for students to consider. Again, like we mentioned before, students should ask their teacher in person first. We know that a lot of students have already started asking their teachers, and a lot of them are doing great with asking in person and then putting in the request on Naviance. So we're just going to have students continue doing that. The teachers appreciate having that common courtesy of just getting that request verbally first. And sometimes too, teachers will request certain things from the student in order to write their letter. So sometimes teachers might need a copy of a resume. Teachers might have questions that they have students fill out in order to just find out more about what they do outside of the classroom in order to include information like that on their letter. So, you know, we have students continue to do that. When students are then putting in the request on Naviance, they're able to go to that same colleges tab at the top, and then there's a link that says letters of recommendation. Once the student clicks onto that, there's a button that says add request. It's pretty easy to find once you know what you're looking for, and then students are just able to go through that process to get the letter request added in. It's best to ask as soon as possible. So if there's a student who hasn't yet asked anybody for letters, we recommend that they start doing that because sometimes teachers get really busy. Some teachers have, they're able to write a lot of letters, but they're doing it in their own time. And so there might come a point when a teacher might have too many letters to write and they might not be able to do a letter for a student. So definitely asking now if it hasn't done so already. One more thing too, just to touch upon, that we as counselors will write the letter for the student as well. There has been a like a survey on Naviance that students were supposed to fill out at the end of last year. Some students forgot to, and so they aren't able to do it now. For some reason, the survey is no longer available to students. And so if there's any student who hasn't yet done the student college questionnaire on Naviance, we're going to be talking to those students to make sure that we can get their information as well. But if a student doesn't remember if they've filled that out yet or not, we're always able to check and see if they would need to do that still. So the transcript verification form, it is a Google form that we have students complete so that they can say that everything on their transcript looks accurate and that we are able to send their transcripts to schools on their behalf. So students yesterday, the ones who attended the presentation that we gave during lunch, they've received a copy of their transcript so that they can review it for accuracy. For any student who did not receive their transcript yesterday, they'll have to see their counselor in order to get that copy of the transcript. So again, they're going to look over the transcript, make sure that everything looks accurate, and then they're going to sign off on the Google form saying, yes, everything looks good. You can send out my transcript. The other part of that verification form is going to ask which teacher letter the student would want to prioritize. So say a student has asked 3 teachers for letters of recommendation, but one of their schools only accepts 1 letter. We want the student to tell us which one of those 3 letters they would want us to send out for them. It is tough, and we do say this to students, it's tough that they don't see the and they don't necessarily know what it says. But if a teacher is agreeing to write a student a letter, it is going to be good. So all of their letters will say good things about them. None of them, they're not taking a gamble trying to figure out which one might be good and which one might not be good. All of them will be good letters. We would just say for students to pick the teacher who perhaps you feel like you did the best in their class, or you feel like you had the strongest connection with, or the teacher that maybe you had more than once and they were able to see more of your work. So that's just that other piece of the form. And then eDocs on Naviance. So that's going to allow us to send out the information to the colleges. It's not necessarily a piece that students or parents need to worry about, but it is something that we just like to tell students about so that they understand what that process looks like. So by putting in the letter of recommendation request on Naviance, we're able to just send those letters directly. We're able to send our counselor letters directly to schools. And then that's how the transcripts get sent as well. So colleges will be able to receive those documents right away. They'll be able to just add them to the student's application as soon as possible. And then we're also able as counselors to verify that everything went through. So we get a receipt on our end showing that the document was submitted on X date at X time. So then if there's ever any kind of concern with the school saying that they hadn't received something on time, we're able to go back and say that it was indeed sent. We haven't really had issues with student or with colleges not receiving documentation, but if there ever is, we're able to have that receipt that it was sent. And then if needed, we would just resend it in that case.
Part of the logistics and some of the things that we definitely encourage students to do is if they are applying to 10 schools, they communicate with their counselors consistently and indicate, hey, Mr. Paul, over the weekend, I applied to these 3 schools, in which at that point, I would go on to the Naviance platform. I would verify that those materials have been submitted. And then I would respond to the student and say, hey, so-and-so, I submitted your supporting documentation for the schools that you've listed. At that time, we ask students within a few days of that communication to reach out to those schools, either log into their portals or contacting undergraduate admissions and saying, I've submitted my application. I've confirmed with my counselor that my materials have been submitted. I'm calling to confirm that you've received my materials. Because quite often what colleges will do is they'll send out a mass email, basically putting the ownership and the burden on the students and the counselors to ensure the materials have been sent and get duplicate submissions, as opposed to removing the people who they have received the materials for, because logistically pulling out all those names out of a stack would not be possible for them to do in their timeline. And sometimes we hit those deadlines and students are concerned that we in fact did not submit their materials, and we have. And they're getting a blanket email because at the bottom of the email it says, if you've already confirmed that we have received your materials, please disregard this email. So it can put people in a panic because deadlines come up quick. But that constant communication and that back end work that we expect students to do is to call and confirm that they've received their materials. As Mrs. Feinberg mentioned, we do get a digital receipt that we have submitted. We can't confirm on the other end that they have in fact received. Anything can happen, digital technology, what have you. There have been times in the past we've had to resend. We can't resend through Naviance. If a student claims, a college claims that they have not received our materials for whatever reason, we have the opportunity to send those same materials either through a email directly to an admissions counselor, which is why we don't want students to just click a button and then sit back and be like, I applied, I'm done. It's part of that process that they're ensuring that their materials have been received after communicating us that we have submitted. The SRAR is a self-reported academic record. Some schools require students to fill this out. Given the volume of applications that they do receive, Rutgers has been an SRAR school for a long time. Having switched over to the Common App, they were still requiring the SRAR. Students just need a copy of their transcript so they can report the coursework that they've taken, the grade that they've received, the weight of the course, if it's AP honors or enriched. They're basically reporting their information, this information themselves. SAT and ACT standardized test scores. So as Mrs. Feinberg said, right after the pandemic, there were a lot of schools that were going test optional. A lot of schools continue to be test optional. There's a little bit of a push for some schools to go back to having a standardized testing requirement, but not as many that are still optional. What the advice or guidance that colleges will give us and give students, whether they attend a rep visit or they go to a campus tour, they will say very plainly, if you think it will help your chances of getting it. They won't say much more than that as with regard to whether or not a student should take a standardized test score, submit a standardized test score, and the distinction of whether to take one or the other. Most schools look for an SAT score. ACT probably is more geared towards the STEM educational paths because it's testing accrued knowledge, whereas the SAT is a more predictive model. But in order to submit those scores, students need to log on to those platforms and have an official request sent from the platform directly to the college. The school, Wayne Valley, does not handle that process. So it's important that students are aware of which of their schools want an SAT score, ACT score, and they are requesting an official record to be sent. So the college rep visits, we have approximately last year, right around 60 colleges and universities come to Wayne Valley. They do a presentation that lasts approximately one class period. There is a sign-in process that's right on the front page of the Novant platform for students. Parents might not have the same accessibility, but they're all listed, the day, the time, when they are available. Students must register in advance to attend a rep visit. There is a limit to the number of visits they can attend. I think it's like 10, which I don't think is unrealistic. They basically will give them a conversation about everything that the university offers, from campus life, tuition, the programs that they offer, the new programs that they offer. It is a great opportunity for students to get specific information about a school they potentially might be interested in applying to. They will often give the students a comment card with requesting name, information, email. Absolutely fill that out. We tell them all the time, schools will track your interest. If you go to a rep visit, if you go to a campus tour, they bring those little cards back and they put them into their system. Is it an indicator of possible advantage for acceptance? We can't say, but we do know that they definitely track student level of interest and involvement. If they have an open house, if they have different activities that are geared toward prospective students, involvement in those types of programs definitely show a student's interest. If a student is requesting to go to a rep visit and if they're asking to come out during a core class or a course where they have a test or assessment, the teacher has the right to tell them that they're not allowed to leave the class, because obviously them being in class is super important. But conversations happen all the time where students speak to their teachers in advance. If it's a school a student is very interested in attending, concessions can be made, but those are on a case by case, and it's certainly something that has to occur prior to the rep visit and prior to the teacher approving the student to come out.
And if that's ever a concern too, we've had students come in and say that they wanted to attend a certain meeting, but that they weren't able to get out of class. We always take extra materials from the rep who visits. So that might include like informational pamphlets or business cards to get in contact with the admissions rep. So that's something that we can provide the student with if they're not able to attend.
That's a great segue. I absolutely wanted to mention the fact that quite often the rep who comes to Wayne Valley is either a county, state, or regional rep, and a lot of the time they're the first person that will put eyes on the student's application. So making that contact with potentially someone that has the opportunity to say, I met this student, I think they're going to be a great candidate potentially for our university. So having that FaceTime, having students introduce themselves, we encourage all these things prior to the rep visits. If they have specific questions that they want to ask. Write these questions down. They want to ensure that they make a good impression, even with the reps, because, like I said, it could be the person that is the first wave of people to review their applications.
We have our college acceptance board that we have in the hallway near the guidance office. It's towards the front of the school, but it's in a pretty central location. Students are able to see it. When students get accepted to a school, they're able to fill out a form, and we have little like cards that we post saying where the student got into. So it's a nice way for students to celebrate once they have heard back from schools, and once they've had these achievements that they're able to celebrate, they're able to put that up on the board. So then exploring other options. So we kind of mentioned it briefly before, but there are career exploration and military exploration options on Naviance as well. So under that careers tab on the Naviance homepage, students are able to look through different opportunities there. They're able to look through and see what option might be right for them. If they're knowing that they're not necessarily wanting to follow the college route and would rather pursue a job, for example, right out of high school, but maybe aren't quite sure what that's going to look like yet for them, they're able to look through these options and go through like what are my interests, what am I good at, and then how does that translate to looking for a job or career after high school. So we recognize that college is not an option for everybody, whether the student is simply wanting to take a little bit of time before going into college to explore their options, or if a student just knows that they would rather go into a trade or the military, or looking at a job just in some way or another, knowing that that is what the best option is for them, then that is an option that we explore with students.
For many students, sitting in a classroom for another 4 years is not something that they're excited about. So we do have the opportunity to pursue other avenues. We do attend the Construction Industry Career Day, which occurs in May. Every year, it's the state-sponsored program to encourage students to explore the trades, where every trade union in the state has representation. It's in Edison. We put it out, we promote it with students. We encourage students to come see, even if they're not sold on the option of learning a trade. There is a significant demand for highly skilled labor and a tremendous need in that area. So it's certainly an option for many students. Social media is definitely something we talk about a lot, knowing that it is a tremendous tool, but it could also be a significant impediment. If there is anything that a student is not proud about, is something that they might feel embarrassed by, whether it's behavior or whatever it is, if it's something on their social medias that they are not proud of, that we recommend that they pull it down, to remove it. Because colleges do look at these kinds of things. They want to know that a student coming to them is going to represent them well. Could it keep them from a potential acceptance? We can't say. Could it keep them from potentially getting a job when they're entering the world of work? Definitely. So having healthy internet habits is important, which we encourage, which we talk about a lot. And it's definitely part of this process as well. All right, so what now? So this is essentially just sort of a recap of everything that we've spoken on. We have said consistently and continue to say, communicate with your counselor. You should be having conversations with us very regularly, wherever you are within the process. We have students that are trying to wrap up their part of the process now, and we have students that are starting the process in like February. So it runs the gamut as far as what it looks like for every student. But definitely communicating with your counselors so that we know where you are and what we need to help assist you in understanding, in figuring out. The rep visits are super important, that students start seeing what's out there, what options they have. As seniors, they have 3 days that are built into the system at the state level for college visits, 3 days. So if a student is looking to attend a college for a visit, they occur all different schedules. Some schools do them on weekends, some do them on Fridays, some do them whenever you want to come in for a visit. Making an attendance call in the morning, attending the visit, they'll usually do a campus tour, an information session. Sometimes they'll feed you lunch. And then the student just needs to obtain something from the university indicating that they were there for a rep visit, for a college visit, and then bring that note to the back office, and the absence does not count against them. Transcript verification form, we will be sending this out to all students, obviously, to verify that their transcripts are accurate and that we have permission to send out their materials. They should be working on their applications, creating their list of schools that they are planning or thinking about, and then turning them into active applications on their colleges I'm planning on applying to list. They'll be working on their essays, usually in their English class. Editing, they review it with students, they go over it exhaustively so that the students are confident and comfortable that their topic is a good topic, that it's well written. Sending test scores, as we mentioned, is solely the student's obligation, as the school cannot send anything that's official with regard to those test scores. And then celebrate once you submit. So it definitely it is those bright spots where students feel confident. They start to feel good that, that they've worked hard for the last 4 years, that they're being recognized, even if it's in a small way. That college acceptance board by middle of the year is full. So some students, they have 2 or 3, other students have 7 or 8. It all depends, how many schools they're looking to apply to, but the board fills up, and it's each of those little cards that students fill out has the mascot or the logo of the school that they're looking to potentially attend, are posted on that board.
This last piece, so students, like we said yesterday, received their transcript, a hard copy of the transcript from us, if they were attending this presentation that we hosted for seniors. So we just wanted to give this last distinction of the transcript that they're seeing versus what colleges will see. So whether a student's already gotten their transcript or if they still need to pick it up, it's going to say unofficial student transcript at the top, whereas the version that colleges are getting is not going to say that. It will still be the same transcript, but just the version that the student has is unofficial. Both colleges and the student copy are going to show the list of classes that the student has taken, as well as their final letter grade only. It does not show a final number grade. It does not show marking period grades, just that final letter grade in each class, as well as the credits earned per class. Students on their transcript have their numerical rank listed at the bottom. That is solely because we have a lot of students who ask to know what their rank is, because if they want to report their numerical rank, they're more than welcome to, and they're filling out the Common App. They certainly don't have to. They could do decile rank like we do, but a lot of students are curious what their rank is, so we included it there. However, the version that colleges receive are not going to include the numerical rank at the bottom. And then finally, the college version, it's going to include all of the classes that students are currently taking right now, their senior year. So students should know, of course, which classes they're attending every day. Colleges will just see the list of classes that they're taking. It's not going to have any grades so far. And if a student is taking a study hall, the study hall will not be listed on the transcript. Colleges might just be able to see under the credits that the students are taking. If a student's taking 35 credits versus 40 credits, colleges are maybe going to be able to figure out that a student is taking a study hall, but it's not going to explicitly say study hall on the transcript.
All right, so that's our presentation. If you know someone was unable to attend today, this is recorded, so we will be posting it on the school YouTube page. But we definitely want to open up if there are a couple of questions that we can answer for you. Feel free to raise your hand. We have one hand raised. Hello, what's your question?
Yes, no, but you already answered it. It's the web page that they had to apply to the SAT, so
Okay,
it's already answered.
okay, perfect.
Yeah, no, it's great presentation. Thank you for the information.
Thank you.
This is
Thank
going to
you.
be very helpful.
Good, good. As we have mentioned, we are available at your disposal for anything, any questions. Feel free to contact your child's counselor. If you're unsure who your student's counselor is, we are broken down by alphabet. You can call the guidance office to find out. If your child had Mrs. Milovic last year, her caseload has been disseminated amongst the 6 of us. So there are students that within that section of the alphabet have been spread out to the rest of the counselors. Email, phone call, whatever it is that you need, whatever it is that your students need. We encourage students to come down during lunch block. Seniors do get to leave for lunch, so maybe we see them less because they want to go to lunch. But for most often, they are very communicative in this process. We do keep tabs when there are students that we have not yet met. Having given them the group presentation, we will now individually send out invitations to our students to meet with them and to set up a time to go over their individual plans. So they've gotten the presentation overall, but we go over this exact same process with them. We did it yesterday, pretty much the same presentation, but individually when we do meet with them, we go over everything and anything that they have questions on. And we don't ever want there to be a moment where students say, I didn't know, I wasn't sure. I ask if you have a question, ask. We're here for whatever it is that you need.
Absolutely, will do. Thank you.
Of course. Hi, Ms. Porfido.
Hi, just 2 quick questions.
Sure.
One, if you have a teacher recommendation from someone who maybe isn't working at Wayne Valley anymore, doesn't have access to Naviance, do
Okay.
they email directly to the guidance counselor, their letter?
Yes, if that has not yet been written, we have had teachers in the past that were leaving that students had asked, and they've already submitted to us those letters of recommendation. But if it's something that has not yet happened, then yeah, we absolutely recommend, especially if a student has waived their FERPA right, the letter should not pass through their hands. So yeah,
Perfect.
directly to the counselor would be great.
Great. And then for students who take dual enrollment classes, do we have to submit a transcript from the college that they got the dual enrollment credits from, or is
Yes.
it just reflected? We do. We have to
That's a
request.
great question. I appreciate you bringing that up. So with any and all dual enrollment courses, if a student has obtained dual enrollment credits through a college that has certified our program, that record of the grade and the course are with that school. So for say it's a business course, marketing or accounting, and it's FDU, students and families would need to contact. Usually, it's a clickable button on the school's website where it says request an official transcript, and you'd log into their portal and request an official transcript to be sent to the colleges that the student is planning to attend. So that's a great question. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
All right, so if there are no other questions, thank you so much. Please do not hesitate to reach out to your child's counselor for any part of this process. We're available for any questions, meetings, whatever it is that we can do to provide support in this process. It is a bit daunting, and it's fun to see students work through it and then to feel that relief of getting everything done, getting everything submitted, starting to get those acceptances, and then they turn and they go, I'm so glad I'm done with that. And we have to remind them that they're just putting their toes on the start line. This is a process, but you're just starting. So we celebrate the victories and we support them, encourage them in this process, but we remind them that this is work and they're moving on to something that potentially is going to challenge them, probably for many in ways that maybe they didn't feel so much here. So it's a process, and we encourage, students to do their best. All right. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us. Great day.